are you creating something that you intend to be beautiful, or are you creating something that you intend to say, I am?
Well, I think that saying I am is beautiful. It's totally selfish. It's ridiculous in a lot of ways, and to talk about it often takes away the beauty of it itself, to be in front of, people, to be on screen, and not to contradict, obviously, the whole point of the film, which is to expose this kind of secret life. I didn't necessarily see the final. What I said maybe is totally different from what I said 8 years ago or 5 years ago or yesterday. It changes literally every day, every time,
And that's what makes it a conversation on my sense. Yeah, and I also think it's like you're saying about the imperfectness, and like this film really, it's a documentation, and it's a lot of this is that you have one take, and I think that's also like the relationship to graph, as legal, you've got to do it. You've got one chance of doing it, and you've got to get out, and that's that. And that's the same idea in terms of how this was shot. You have one camera, one go. You may not see these people again, and you have to get something, or you try or die. It's like that kind of aspect.
And I guess what separates it from street art is that it's this pre-perfected thing. It's the exact, kind of calculated vision of that individual that is fabricated and applied in a basically, New York is different because, you'll get arrested for pissing on the street, but anywhere else I go in the world, I saw people today just doing stencils and...
But it feels like there are areas where it's allowed and there's areas where it's not sometimes.
Kind of even just in certain neighborhood to neighborhood sort of, where it's kind of sanctioned. And then once it's sanctioned, it goes into the realm of being legal, which is street art, which is gallery art, which is...
that's also the point, trying to have the difference.
Does the fact that it becomes legal diminish it? Or does it preserve it or extend it?
I mean, the fact that 99% of it is crap probably diminishes it too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the main issue, because it doesn't. You're not in the trenches honing your skills. You're kind of creating a brand that you eventually want to put out a book. You eventually want to have shows, and I've had many shows with Hugo. I haven't, we might kind of scrape some money together, from the gods or whatever, but, we don't make money on this, it's not. And if we did, if someone was like, here's, $10 million, we're not going to say no. It would be like, okay, great,
You're not going to say
Can I ask you?
You might, but...
What's the riskiest thing? Can I just ask you, what's the riskiest thing you've ever done for your graffiti? In terms of, I don't know.
Well, I'm scared of heights, and so every time I've scaled a fire escape that's kind of got one loose bolt holding the whole, on an abandoned building, even just walking around abandoned buildings. I don't know, because sometimes you're climbing things to get in, sometimes you're climbing things to run away from the police, so people constantly...
Have you been arrested for it?
Have
or
I?
in trouble for it?
Remember the
You don't
fifth,
have to
remember
answer.
the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
no, sorry.
well, it's all over and done with, I guess, but yeah. I mean, it's always silly kind of stuff, and anytime you get arrested, everyone's in there for silly stuff, and you say, they're like, oh, this penny ante, jail, this and that. Everyone's complaining. People get arrested for selling CDs on the street in Chinatown, or you hop a turnstile, or you smoke a joint, and that's all. That's literally the majority of arrests, and it's all to kind of generate fear and to generate money for the kind of jailing system and the police department and the government and into
Let me ask a question. Part of the film talks about this United Graffiti Artists back in the early 70s, when it seems there was a community of people. Is there the same kind of peer community and peer review and peer assessment today that there used to be, and should there be?
Definitely still crews, tight-knit kind of, we call them crews. Most of my best friends are all still writers, retired or not. I consider myself retired because, it's a child's game, it's childish on a lot of levels, and but it creates strong characters, and these are all, people that have gone on to be really successful in whatever they've put their minds to because they've kind of been through these extreme circumstances, trial by fire kind of thing, and you really learn the true nature of an individual by how they respond to crisis situations, and it's that kind of Band of Brothers type of.
Has your work continued to grow?
Yeah, well, because I still practice, but I don't, and I kind of wish I was still active because I feel like I'm better now than I was definitely when this was made. But yeah, it's just different outlets. I know so many kind of psychopathic thinkers that could have been just like the biggest thing ever, but they've destroyed their lives through just, complete destructive behavior learned through just living, this kind of lifestyle, whether it's drugs or just mental illness or anything like that. So, it's rigorous. It's rigorous,
I
I'd
wanted
say.
to ask you, Stephen, do you have any advice for anyone who's maybe thinking about making a documentary that you've shown that it can be done without much means necessarily?
It's all about doing, and that's
Yeah.
the bottom line. Whether that's your camera phone, whether it's a cracked camera you can borrow or steal, whether you keep borrowing money off your brother just to get stuff done. And I think that's the principle. Again, and the same thing with I suppose any kind of creative. But if you've got an idea, or if you're going forward with it, it's all about doing. And you do it by any means necessary, as a great man once said.
Mm-hmm.
But so that would be my advice to anyone who kind of want to make a documentary, and then also just finding the right subjects and the people who can help you along the way. I mean, like I said, this didn't start off to be necessarily a documentary. It was just my interest in and Hugo's interest, and us having a relationship and it building from there. So it was so it organically grown as well. It's always been a kind of, like I say, organic conversation that there's still lots of conversation that's not in this,
Mm-hmm.
and I still think there's lots more of the conversation to continue.
There's definitely room for part 2. It's very short so far.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that's the kind of, for me, this is the beginning. It's the beginning of the conversation, and it's really about kind of developing that conversation.
I was struck by the music in the film. Can someone talk about the relationship between the music and the artistic creation?
I was struck by it too.
Would you say that?
I thought it was interesting.
We sat down.
Yeah.
Steve and I, we worked, 3 years on the music. And I'd introduce, he'd go through maybe 200-300 songs until we got the right song. And then, like that. And then looking at, maybe we ended up looking at probably 7,000 to 8,000 songs.
Also, I think it's also a relationship with what they're saying in the song. I mean, there's lots of levels on this film as well in terms of the fabric of it. And so the music really kind of relates to the image with the statement in which it's saying, and also the influence, and so there's a lot of elements within that. And that's why it took us a long time to find the right music for it. And like I say, it was a case of us just sitting banging heads, literally going, yes, no, no, yes, no, now give it up, next one, you know.
Well,
So
also there's another aspect, because we didn't want to take Latin music, and in other words, Latin music is always used with Latin American issues, or it's always in that context. That always ethnicized. So music is music. So especially if you're dealing with a subject that's not necessarily Latin, so we'd throw in Latin. And then when it was somebody who was maybe white, we'll throw in Brazilian music from northern Brazil or South African music.
But there's still a relationship between the music and the image and the character, though. I feel, you know, as well as it wasn't for me just like
What is
for
it?
us, for like
What's the-
throwing stuff in. I
What?
think.
Like things that were just not heard, or things that obscure,
Unpredictable.
but always on the outside somehow. That shouldn't have been on the outside.
I thought the Joker and the Thief with Caper was, because you think of Reservoir Dogs with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's-
But there's not one like
Nobody
rap.
cut anybody's ear off, however.
Yeah, because you're thinking of like kind of like
Well, again, it's that
intense
association.
kind of like theatrical stuff
Yeah.
with that. But yeah, no rap,
Yeah. Exactly.
rap.
No rap in a
Yeah.
graph film.
not even Run DMC.
I know, right?
Do you guys have any other comments, or can I hand over to the audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, would you like to?
I kind of have a double question, if I can ask both parts and just choose what you'd like to answer. First of all, I was really interested in where the vintage footage came from, where you sourced that, because that was really amazing to watch. And the second part is, it's so male. And if anyone wanted to say anything about how masculine it is, and as a form, and if there are any women writing.
You were not the
No.
first person who's made that comment to us.
That doesn't surprise me.
There were three writers, two writers in the history of graph that achieved the status of king or queen, rather queen. Barbara 62, Eva 62. That was it. That was it. It's like.
Wait, I thought you said three.
Why is it
It was
such a
Michelle
masculine
maybe, but
form?
really, why? Because
Yeah.
it's like, that's the guys that are trying to show the girls. And it's like, why is it, how many American presidents have been women?
Give it time.
I don't know if that's it's a pretty
real macho culture.
Yeah, maybe it's more cultural, both exclusion and then feeling excluded.